Today on Bridges, we're going to talk about the challenges and the blessings of co-parenting and blended families. Welcome to Bridges. I'm so glad that you could join us today. I'm Monica Schmel today, and today on Bridges, we are going to be talking about blended families. And my first guests today are Tammy and Jay Daughtry. And Tammy, it's so good to have you back again on Bridges.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Monica.
And Jay, it's good to have you. It's the first time you've been on Bridges.
Yes, first time here, and I'm glad and privileged, so thank you for having us.
Yeah. Well, I've had the opportunity to talk to your beautiful wife, Tammy, so many times, so it'll be good to have you here and get to know you better. Tammy, how is your family? How are you guys doing?
Oh, good. We've been married almost 8 years now.
That doesn't seem possible. Congratulations.
Yeah, we've blended 4 children, now ranging from 17 up to 28, 29, and then we have 2 grandchildren, 2 son-in-laws, and still 2 dogs. So busy household. They're not all at home, but they're all in Nashville, which is a blessing. But
yeah, it is. It does sound like a busy household. And,
it is.
You know, as you mentioned, you've been married for 8 years and you blended 4 children, correct? And that, you know, presents its blessings and the challenges. What are some of the challenges that you've learned about, Jay?
Well, challenges range from the very simple things of, you know, you've got more people to deal with, more personalities, and so more divided time. And on the one hand, you have a new couple that's trying to develop a strong couple bond and really maintain and cultivate that relationship. And on the other hand, you have other relationships that are not just automatic. You know, in an intact family, you both have born children, and so there's this time and this history and this opportunity to create strong attachment. It just naturally happens. But in a blended family, there has to be the same kind of intentionality in strengthening us as a couple as trying to figure out, well, how do I connect with my stepchild? And how do I make them feel like they're all unique, special in their own right, but yet all a family?
Because you know, the thing is, and we hear every day, and you guys have experienced personally, that it's a lot to navigate through and can be very painful for children and for the moms and dads and the step parents and all of that. And I know, Tammy, you all have a curriculum, you know, One Heart, Two Homes. You've done a lot of work in terms of co-parenting. And, you know, I love that term. I love that you all are working in that to help people because it is painful. What are some of the things that you share with people, some of the joys of co-parenting?
Sure. Well, you know, I've been a co-parent almost 17 years now, and you know, the number one thing I think that I could say is a joy is seeing that my daughter now has 4 parents that love her. We're both remarried. She has a total of 6 step-siblings, 3 in each household. She's the youngest of everybody, so she's spoiled rotten.
Yeah, she gets to be the baby everywhere she goes.
Yes. But, you know, I think when I was at the beginning of the journey and I was so scared of how divorce was going to affect her, and I didn't want her to be hurt by it. I didn't want her to live in a hard place between the 2 houses. And not that we've done it all perfect, because we're still learning as we go, but I can tell you to see her enjoy both families. You know, at her 16th birthday, we all were together. At upcoming high school graduation, we'll all be there together. And we found ways to navigate that and to protect her from the tough part of post-divorce. And then one of the beautiful blessings, certainly in blending our family, was that she inherited a wonderful stepdad and 3 older siblings, and they just scooped her up like she was one of their own. And so it's been beautiful, not just for her to have you know, a stepfather and step-siblings, but to also get to see that marriage is important and both houses, you know, to see marriage continue, even though it's not the original marriage of her parents. So.
Yeah. And that takes a lot of hard work.
It does. It does.
It does, yeah, definitely.
Jay, tell me about, you know, how your faith, because I know you both are people of faith. What role does faith play in co-parenting?
Well, I think there's a lot of different aspects to it. Obviously, having grown up in the church, been a pastor for 20 plus years, you know, faith is interwoven into my worldview. And so, you know, recognizing first as a graduate student that I actually grew up in a blended family, didn't really realize it, you know. And so that was a good thing, but yet it was also a bad thing because somewhere along the way, myself and my 3 brothers lost a mother. She was out of the picture. But from a faith standpoint, we recognize on the one hand that God has established this very sacred union called marriage, and it's special and it's unique, and there's a oneness that's created. And that's why when a divorce happens, it is so devastating.
Yeah.
And so the challenge then for us is to reconcile that with our faith, to be able to say, well, this is what God wanted for me. This is what God wanted for us. And now it's broken, and it's broken in a way that we can't put it back together. So what do we do now? Do we live under condemnation? Because that's a lot of what people have experienced
Absolutely.
from the church in that place. And there are so many that I've heard chant this mantra from the pulpit that, God hates divorce. I agree, God hates divorce, but he doesn't hate those who've gone through it.
No, absolutely
Our
not.
God is a loving God. He's a God of restoration and redemption. And so, for us, our faith informs what we do as counselors, authors and speakers, as we try to walk with people through this journey, as we try to show some hope and shed some light on the fact that, yes, there's been something that's been broken. There are failures enough to go around for everybody. But we have a God who takes those failures and says, okay, beauty from ashes.
Yes.
That's who I am. A creative, imaginative God who will bring beauty from ashes. And if you will allow me to,
Right.
I will step into this place with you
Right.
and walk you through it. And so I'm hoping that the church at this point will start to recognize that we need to be an instrument of grace, not condemnation.
Right.
And many churches understand that. Others are really struggling with the issue, and it's a difficult issue.
Well, I think that we've
recognize.
had such a hard time reconciling, that the Bible talks about marriage being a lifetime union, and that the church has felt like, well, but if we recognize divorce or we show grace toward it, that somehow that would make divorce more
Right.
popular. And I don't think that that's the case, because I think even when we look at that scripture where it says God hates divorce, most people that are divorced would tell you they too hate divorce.
Absolutely.
There's still wonderful people who want that hope in a future that only God can give. But nobody likes that separation, the breaking of what's been joined together. That's a lot of pain. It's a lot of hopelessness of people who feel like they've tried everything and prayed everything, and for whatever reason, that marriage stays broken. And so you, Tammy, have been through that personally in terms of co-parent, and both of you have blended this family. And so you've got personal experience, but you also, as I understand it, work as counselors and provide that service, because it's hard for somebody that's hurting to be able to come into a new relationship, or co-parent and be positive about it.
Sure. Well, and even being a step parent, I mean, that's one of the hardest jobs in America. Or anywhere.
Yeah.
When you step into a child's life, whether it's through death or divorce. I'm a stepmom. My 3 children, they lost their mother in a car accident, and so it wasn't.
So that was
it was
Yes.
his first wife.
You were widowed.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's, but there's still this level of compassion and understanding to try to help children who mom is not in the house around the corner, she's in heaven. And how do you still celebrate her at Christmas and Mother's Day and her birthday and those special moments that as the kids grow older are still special. And so, step parenting in general is a tough journey, and especially when kids have lost their father or their mother. And so part of what we do, we have a counseling center in Nashville. It's called the Center for Modern Family. And we do co-counseling actually with blended family couples who are either considering marriage, maybe they're not engaged yet, they're trying to think, is this their right forever after? And up and all the way through 5-10 years into marriage, when they're really struggling, they come in and we work with them as a couple. And we find that, not that we have all the solutions, but that we're a couple that's in a co-parenting step-family scenario with lots of layers of complication, and so we can walk with them through that. And that's what we try to do is to help them where they're hurting, help them be the most stable individuals they can, so they can be amazing parents. And then, as Jay was saying, some of them wrestling with their faith and what does God think of all this. We try to help them find some really solid answers to those questions.
Because the thing is, the more that we're hurting and that we feel broken, whether that's through divorce or or just anything in life. It's hard to give our children a stable, positive outlook when we feel broken and decimated. And you know, Jay, some people watching today might say, okay, but you know, you were widowed, and Tammy, you went through this divorce, and you guys are really godly people, and you're counselors and speakers and authors. You've got this curriculum, one heart, two homes. But someone watching may be like, you know, I'm in this divorce situation, and my ex doesn't even care to be a positive co-parent. Is there any help for them? Is that something that you all could help with?
There absolutely is. You know, one of the things, quite often we end up talking to a single parent who's in that place where the other parent is either completely checked out to the point of almost an abandonment, emotionally, physically, or they're at the very best uncooperative, if not adversarial in the whole process. And we try to help them understand that the principles that are foundational to healthy cooperative co-parenting, even if only one person on the side of that equation is willing to apply those principles, there is still going to be positive outcomes. And the reason being is the heart of co-parenting is not about the parents so much as it is about the child. What's happening to the children and what's overflowing into their lives. And so the process then ends up being a process by which the parents start to recognize, okay, my child still needs to be parented. They're traveling this one heart between two homes. How do we do that well? Well, we have to learn to communicate. And so a lot of co-parenting is taking people through a process of figuring out, how do we communicate? How do we take all the hurt, the angst, and the pain of our divorce, compartmentalize that, set it aside somewhere so that we can speak about the needs of our children, their emotional needs, their social needs, whatever those needs are. And that really is the heart of co-parenting, is getting that communication to a point where it can be done well and keeping the conflict down. Because all of those things are what are going to have an effect on a child. And so I would encourage someone who's got an ex that's not helpful to just continue to do what's well, figure out what they can do. You know, we can't change another person, but we can change ourselves. We can do things differently. And whatever we can do is still going to have positive outcomes and overflow into the hearts of our children.
Because it's still a great model and an example to our children when we're stable and healthy and positive in the midst of turmoil and conflict. You know, it still speaks of our faith and helps protect their fragile hearts. So you can be helpful then, Tammy, to people where both people aren't cooperative.
Yes, and actually on our website there's a lot of free information. There's some videos, there are some downloads, some research that we found when I was working on my master's about how to help kids after divorce, and we take that kind of high level research and make it mom and dad friendly. So there's a lot of free information that moms or dads could go get from our website, and they, as one side of that equation, could try to implement. And I always say to parents, sometimes it's not always what we say, it's what we leave unsaid that is helpful. And so even just having a healthy mindset about co-parenting, even if the other person's not involved or not interested at this point, one person can really protect their children from a huge amount of pain by healthy choices and what they say and what they leave unsaid.
That is awesome. Thank you both for coming and for joining. I'm sorry that we're out of time, but I have so appreciated you all coming out and being a part of Bridges today.
Thank you.
We want you to stay with us today. When we come back, you're going to meet a couple who has blended a family of 5, and they're going to talk to us about how they are better than blended.
You can purchase a copy of today's show for $15. Call us at 615-754-0039 or send a check to the address on the screen. Please mention the program number on the screen.
The blood of Christ is the only cure. It gets down to the root of every single thing that ails us. There's not an addiction, there's not a generational curse, there's not any root of sin, there's nothing that the blood of Jesus cannot cleanse.
Visit monicaschmelter.com to schedule Monica to speak at your event.
When I truly turned my heart to the Lord, He took every sin I ever did away from me. God really is your other half. God, he's the only person who can really, you know, fill those holes and cracks in your heart that you're so wanting someone to fill.
It's no good to have a big dream if you're not putting yourself in motion to go after that.
If you're just joining us on Bridges today, we're going to open up the conversation about blended families and how to address the challenges and embrace the blessings. And so the interview that we're going to do right now is by way of video conference, and it's with a blended family, and their ministry name is Better Than Blended. So I'm excited for you to be able to meet Willie and Rachel Scott. And Willie and Rachel, welcome to Bridges today.
Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you. You know, in this first segment of Bridges, we had a couple talk about co-parenting and some things like that. I know that you all are not just a blended family, you're better than blended, but let's start out with just a little bit about your stories.
Well, we both grew up in blended families ourselves, and so our experience started from childhood of experiencing this being blended, and then we became married, and my husband had 3 children, I had 2, and we had 2 together. So we merged our families together, and it's been a great experience.
Right.
Well, that's wonderful. How is a traditional family different from a blended family?
Well, the way we explain it is, the traditional family is you have one father, one mother, and then you have one child or one set of children. Whereas in a blended family, you could have multiple, you have more than one father, more than one mother, and more than one set of children. And then there's usually also a lot of other outside influences that come into play.
Yeah. And I would think with all the things that you just mentioned, for example, the outside influences having more than one mom and dad and sets of children, does that make raising a blended family challenging?
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yes.
we always like to say that it's a beautiful challenge.
A beautiful challenge? What are some of the challenges?
I mean, some of the challenges are just really having so many outside influences, whether it's trying to figure out how to discipline, because you have to take into consideration the other parents that are involved, or weekend visits, or
summer
visits. There are so many just different dynamics that go into where someone may be able to just plan a summer vacation. We have to consider so many things before we can plan a summer vacation. So that's just an example.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. And that's even just something on a fun thing like summer vacation. Yes. But then I would think, you know, for things like holidays, and you mentioned discipline.
Yes.
I would imagine and want to ask you, you know, when people get remarried or they have this blended family, just because a couple, now that they're married, does that mean that a parent that's not a biological parent would automatically be able to discipline someone else's child? How does that work?
Well, what we like to, what we talked about recently on one of our posts, somebody sent in a question in that same format, is that we're big on discipleship, which discipline comes from the root word disciple. And the difference between the two is discipline is punishment for the sake of punishment. You did something, here's the consequence, no matter whether it teaches a lesson. Where our big thing is really discipleship, where it teaches a lesson. So the question to that would be, and are we married, when couples are remarried, then each parent has an assignment in that child's life. So each parent should play a role of discipleship in that child's life, in whatever form it looks like. But there should be a role of discipleship in that child's life. So discipline is something that each parent should play a role in, whether they're bio parent or a step parent.
Right. So you're saying that does come up, but you look at it from a discipleship issue.
Right.
I think with that, we also have to take in consideration the forms of discipline, the boundaries, as far as making sure that each parent is comfortable with it. That's where, when it comes to a blended family, it's so many other influences. Yeah. Is there a parenting arrangement involved? Is there custody? Are you going to court? What's the relationship? So you have to take all those things into consideration. But if the root of it is discipleship, then that'll lead the best.
And discipline will look differently than maybe in a traditional home, because we have to think outside of the normal box of how we discipline.
Yeah. And I would think that you all learned some of this because you came from blended families.
Right.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
now you're offering helps to others. One of the things that you've mentioned are outside influences. So you've got multiple parents and grandparents, and how do you all deal with that, and how do you help other blended families deal with that? Because I would think, you know, just for anybody, just raising up a child in a traditional home is challenging. I mean, we're all depending on the Lord for sure, but how do you all deal with the multiple outside influences?
I think the big thing in that is really setting boundaries and understanding what needs to be something that's influencing the home and what kind of may not have anything to do with how you want to operate things in your home. So the big thing in that is just setting boundaries and understanding how you want things to operate in your home and allowing that to be the goal that kind of navigates how the relationships work.
Right. Communication is key.
Yes.
And that the spouses have to communicate with each other and be on the same page and talk about what bothers them, what they like, what they don't like, so that they can support one another wholeheartedly.
And so before you all got married, did you have all of this figured out and the boundaries set, or?
I wish.
No, that's one thing that we definitely love is that we walk this journey with people.
Right.
So we talk from our experience with childhood as well as our experience walking through the journey of becoming a blended family that's like really intentional, just because we've learned so much from childhood.
Right. In the beginning, Monica, one of the things, like some of the stuff would be frustrating. The challenges would be really frustrating because we didn't understand it. Now, I believe, even though they're still frustrating to a certain point, now it's not as frustrating because we know there's a purpose behind everything that we've experienced. We've been able to pour into other people, so that we know there's a greater picture behind what we're going through. So with that in mind, we bear it, and it's sometimes uncomfortable, but we know that it's for a greater purpose.
Yeah. So by keeping the bigger picture in mind, you're able to kind of go through it, even if it's uncomfortable, to go through it with grace.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, because I saw this on your website, it says being a blended family doesn't mean that you have to be a broken family. And broken families is something that we hear about, you know, even with traditional families and all over the place. So many families are broken. What do you mean by being a blended family doesn't mean you have to be broken, and how could somebody achieve that?
You know, I really think that whenever blended families come together, it's either because of a relationship that didn't work or death in the family or something like that. So everyone comes into the picture with some level of brokenness. And I think people feel like they have to stay stuck at that point. And so what we want to encourage people to know is that you don't have to continue to be broken. You can experience wholeness, you can experience unity, you can still experience oneness within your family, even if what led you to this point was brokenness.
Yeah. I would imagine, and I've talked to many people that have said, you know, that they just feel like giving up, that like once they get into that whole blended thing, whether it's custody, visitation, planning vacations, discipline, they just kind of feel like it's coming at them from everywhere and they don't know what to do. What can somebody do that feels like they just need to give up?
I think they need to stay focused on the fact that that this is an assignment. Sometimes we get so caught up in the titles of things that we don't realize that there is a specific reason why you have been placed in that child's life. And try to find what is the specific assignment that I've been given that only I can fulfill in that moment. That's just something that we're really big on, is understanding what is the assignment, because we can get distracted by all the other things going on that we forget to pay attention to what am I able to do in this child's life that only I can pour into them, that only I can provide for them.
Yeah.
Right. One thing that my wife is big on, Monica, is there's a story of a man who was building a wall. And this wall was so important to protecting the city. And there was a time frame they had to have it built in. So as people were coming to him, trying to get him to come down, take a break, he said, no, you know what, I can't come down. I can't come down because the assignment's too great. So one of her things she speaks to, this applies to the fathers as well, but she really pours into other mothers, and she tells them that, no, I can't come down. Like, this assignment is too great. I have to pour into whatever child I'm assigned to, I have to pour into their life, whether it's my bio child or my stepchild. or if it's niece or nephew, whoever it is, I have to pour into the child's life, and I can't stop. So I can't let all these other distractions pull me away from the inside, which is really nurturing and cultivating the soil for these children.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's a biblical example of
Nehemiah.
yeah, I've got this and I've got to do it, and it's so important I can't stop for any distraction or for anything that might come the way. One of the things that you mentioned when we talked about being blended doesn't mean broken is we talked about oneness and unity. How do you foster unity? Like, you all have 7 children between the two of you. Even, you know, even if those were all your biological children, that's a lot of children to be parenting. But in a blended family, even heightened complications. What can people do to foster unity?
Well, one thing that we do is we really utilize the word intentional. We really believe that if you're not being intentional with it, it's going to be almost impossible.
Yeah.
So one thing that we do is we have a family day. And with that family day, we literally will, and it's not the whole day, it's just the evening part of the day when they get home from school, but everyone knows that Tuesday is family day, and we're doing something. We try to work with either finances, faith, giftings, or I can't quite remember what the third one was, but each Tuesday is finances, faith, giftings, and fun. And each Tuesday is, we pick from one of those areas, and we just do something with the kids, whether we focus on one child and they like to play the drums, so we just pretend we're a band for that day, or whatever we possibly can do. We just really let them know that we're a family, and even if it's just on this one day where we all get to come together and do something for 30 minutes to an hour together, that is just being intentional with the time we have together.
Yeah. And we are almost out of time, I'm sorry to say. How do you all handle challenges as a couple?
How do we handle challenges as a couple?
Oh, challenges as a couple is we try to make sure that there's no division. Communication is key. Like us being on the same page, making sure that we don't allow the children to see division amongst us, or we don't allow others to see the division amongst us. They can see that we're communicating properly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to thank you both so much for joining us by video today. It's been good to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
We are out of time. We've got to go, but we say goodbye and God bless you.
For more information on a guest, visit our website, ctntv.org.
You can purchase a copy of today's show for $15. Call us at 615-754-0039 or send a check to the address on the screen. Please mention the program number on the screen.
Join the Bridges community on Facebook. Visit Facebook and search for Bridges with Monica. We would love to connect with you.
Prayer changes things. If you need prayer, write to the address on the screen. Call 615-754-0039 or email prayer@ctntv.org.
Log on to www.ctntv.org, where you can make a prayer request, view our program guide, see who's on Bridges, or even watch one of Monica's latest teachings. Log on to www.ctntv.org.